A quiet stranger sat on the sidewalk while the world rushed past him. She stopped when no one else did, and offered something small. But what followed, no one saw coming. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a beautiful story and find out what happened next. Hello, family. Welcome to Tales Haven. I hope you find my video story interesting and engaging. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more stories. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. The city of Chicago moved fast. Cars rushed past. People stared at glowing phone screens. Shop doors opened and closed, ringing little bells that nobody really heard anymore. But in the middle of all that noise, a man sat quietly on a street corner near Lakeview Avenue. His jacket was torn at the shoulder. His pants were covered in dust. His beard was overgrown, and his face looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days. He held a simple cardboard sign with 6 words written in bold black marker. Just hungry, not hopeless. Thank you. Most people didn't stop. Some glanced at him and looked away. Others frowned or shook their heads, avoiding eye contact like he didn't exist. A few teenagers walked past, laughing as one of them threw a candy wrapper near his foot. But the man didn't flinch, because the man in rags was not who people thought he was. His name was Grayson Wells. Yes, the same Grayson Wells who built Wells Tech Industries from his college dorm room. The man who once stood on magazine covers as America's youngest billionaire. The same man who had private jets, 5 homes, and a face known by every CEO on Wall Street. But today, none of that mattered. Grayson sat on the sidewalk in disguise. No assistant, no driver, no credit cards, no expensive suit. Just secondhand clothes and a quiet plan. He was tired of people treating him with fake respect because of his name or money. For years, he gave to charities, donated to hospitals, funded scholarships. But something always felt missing. He had a question that kept him up at night. If I had nothing, who would still treat me like a human being? So, for the first time in his life, Grayson left it all behind. He shaved his head slightly, uneven to look rougher. He wore old shoes and a donated jacket with a broken zipper. He even rubbed dirt on his hands and under his nails to match the look. Then he left his penthouse in disguise and stepped into the real world. The moment he did, everything changed. People no longer smiled at him. No one opened doors. In fact, some even crossed the street to avoid him. It was like the world had suddenly gone cold. Not just outside, but in people's hearts. That first day, Grayson sat near a popular sandwich shop. The smell of warm bread and grilled chicken filled the air. He hadn't eaten since the morning before. His stomach growled, but he said nothing. A woman in a red blazer walked past, holding a large takeout bag. He looked up. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said gently. "I'm sorry to bother you. I'm just really hungry. If you have anything left over." She stopped, looked at him from head to toe, then frowned. "I work for what I eat," she snapped. "Maybe you should too." She walked away before he could say another word. Grayson's throat tightened. Not because she didn't give him food, but because she didn't even see him as someone worth speaking to with kindness. He moved from corner to corner that day, a coffee shop, a small park, even outside a train station. He asked politely. Not for money, just a sandwich. A leftover. Anything. But the answer was always the same. "Sorry, I don't carry cash." "Get a job." "I don't give to fakes." Nope. That night, Grayson found a bench in a quiet alley near the back of a bookstore. He curled up under his jacket, using his backpack as a pillow. It was cold, and the wind howled between buildings. He shivered, teeth gently chattering. Above him, stars blinked in the sky. For the first time in years, he felt something strange. Loneliness, and a deep sense of sadness, not for himself, but for how easily the world had forgotten how to be kind. He whispered to himself, staring up at the night sky. Just one person, that's all I'm looking for. One person who would give with no camera watching. No reward waiting. No reason except that it was the right thing to do. And so, the man who once sat in boardrooms now sat in the dirt waiting. What he didn't know was that on the other side of the city, a woman with nothing left was about to change everything. The next morning, Grayson woke up with a stiff neck and sore legs. The bench he slept on had no cushion, and the breeze had crept under his thin jacket all night. His fingers were numb, and his throat felt dry. He sat up slowly and looked around. It was just past 6 a.m. The city was waking up. Buses rumbled by. Shops began to lift their shutters. People in suits and coffee cups hurried to catch trains. No one looked twice at the man in torn clothes sitting beside a trash bin. Grayson rubbed his hands together, trying to warm them. He reached into his small backpack and pulled out the same cardboard sign. Just hungry, not hopeless. Thank you. He folded it under his arm and walked toward downtown. His feet ached, but he kept going. His first stop was outside a bakery. The sweet smell of fresh cinnamon rolls filled the air. A man in a black apron was setting up a display table. Grayson approached quietly. Sir, I'm sorry to ask, do you have any unsold bread or scraps I could have? I haven't eaten since yesterday morning. The man didn't even answer. He looked Grayson up and down, then turned away and went inside. The door shut hard behind him. Grayson sighed and kept walking. Next, he stood near a bus stop. A group of office workers waited nearby. One woman held a paper bag from a fast food chain. She unwrapped her sandwich, took a few bites, then tossed the rest into the trash. Grayson stepped forward, gently. Ma'am, may I have that if you're done? She pulled her purse closer and stepped away. Don't touch me, she snapped. I wasn't trying to, he began. But the bus pulled up. The doors opened. She climbed on without looking back. Grayson stood there for a moment, frozen. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even shocked anymore. But something inside him cracked a little more. He sat back on the curb and watched the bus drive off. His stomach growled again. His lips were dry, and his head felt a little dizzy. He looked around and saw a trash bin beside a lamppost. Slowly, he got up and walked over. He opened the lid. Inside, he found a crushed water bottle with a bit of liquid left. He took it out, looked around to make sure no one was watching, and drank the rest. It was warm and tasted a little sour, but it was something. Later that afternoon, he moved toward a small church. He had heard before that churches sometimes help people in need. He entered the back lot and saw a priest carrying a box of canned food. Excuse me, Father, Grayson said politely. I'm just looking for a little something to eat. I don't need much. Just anything left over. The priest looked at him, then at the empty street. We already gave everything out this morning, he replied. Maybe try again next week. Grayson nodded. I understand. As he turned to leave, the priest added, we get a lot of fakes these days. People pretending just to get free things. Grayson stopped. His heart sank. He didn't explain. He didn't argue. He just kept walking. By evening, he found himself in front of a grocery store. The sidewalk was busy. Shopping carts rolled past. People held bags of food, talking, laughing, living their normal lives. Grayson sat by the wall and placed a sign in front of him. Just hungry, not hopeless. Thank you. He kept his eyes low. One boy pointed at him and whispered something to his mother. The woman gently pulled the boy's hand and walked faster. Grayson didn't blame them, but it still hurt. He thought about his company, Wells Tech Industries. About the hundreds of employees who waited for his approval before doing anything. About his luxury apartment, his imported car, his personal chef who once made him a 5-course meal just because he mentioned he liked mangoes. And now he was here. No one knew. No one cared. And still no one helped. But just as the sun began to drop behind the buildings, casting a soft orange glow across the street, someone did stop. And it wasn't who he expected. She was young, maybe late 20s, wearing an oversized hoodie and torn jeans. Her shoes looked too big, like they had belonged to someone else. A baby slept quietly on her back, wrapped in a soft cloth sling. She stepped out of the store holding only a loaf of bread and a small carton of milk. As she passed, her eyes met his. She paused. Grayson looked away quickly, not wanting to beg again. But then he heard her footsteps come closer. And without a word, She tore the loaf of bread in half and held one half out to him.
Here, she said gently.
It's not much, but I've been hungry too. Grayson looked up slowly, stunned. His hands trembled as he reached for the bread. Why? He asked softly. She smiled, tired but kind. Because if it were me sitting there, she whispered, I'd hope someone would care. And just like that, everything changed. Grayson took the half loaf of bread with both hands, slowly, as if it were made of glass. For a moment, he didn't say a word. He just looked at her, the woman who had so little, yet still gave. The baby on her back shifted gently, still sleeping. She bent down beside him, crouching on the concrete sidewalk as people passed by without noticing. The grocery bag in her hand held only the other half of the bread and a small carton of milk, probably all she could afford. Grayson stared at the food in his hand. He hadn't tasted anything in over a day, but the lump in his throat made it hard to swallow. What's your name? He asked, voice quiet. She hesitated for a second, then answered. Tessa. Tessa Hayes. He gave her a small nod. I'm
Caleb, he lied.
Grayson wasn't ready to reveal who he truly was. Not yet. She smiled faintly. Nice to meet you, Caleb. They sat in silence for a few moments. She reached into her bag and took out the milk. She didn't open it for herself. Instead, she gently unwrapped her baby and held the bottle to his tiny lips. The baby drank slowly, eyes still shut, his tiny hands gripping the blanket near his chest. Grayson watched her with quiet amazement. She moved with care, her hands steady, even though her fingers looked tired. Her nails were chipped, and her skin had the dry look of someone who worked too hard and slept too little. But there was peace in her touch, a kind of strength he hadn't seen in years. Thank you, he said after a moment. Most people today didn't even look at me. But you? She glanced at him and shrugged. I know what it's like. I lost my home once. Lived in a shelter with my baby for 3 months. You don't forget that. Grayson's eyes widened slightly. You've been homeless? Still am, she said softly. Well, not on the streets, but close. I rent a tiny room in someone's basement. It's damp, but it's safe. That's all that matters. He looked down at the bread in his hands. You still gave this to me, he said quietly. Even when you barely have enough for yourself. Tessa leaned back against the wall, the setting sun casting a warm glow on her worn face. There's always someone worse off, she said. I can't fix the world, but I can feed someone. And that's enough for today. Grayson didn't know what to say. In boardrooms, he always had the right words. He could pitch some million-dollar idea in less than 2 minutes. But here, sitting beside a woman who gave with nothing to gain, he felt speechless. Are you working? He asked gently. She shook her head. Used to teach 2nd grade. I loved it. But when my husband passed away, I couldn't afford childcare, so I had to stop. Then came the bills and it all collapsed. He could see the pain in her eyes, not fresh pain, but the kind that settles deep and becomes part of you. I'm so sorry, he whispered.
Tessa looked at him.
You don't have to be. I have my son. I have faith. And I've got today. That's enough. She stood up slowly and rewrapped her baby snugly on her back. I should go, she said. It gets dark early now. Grayson nodded, still holding the bread. Wait, he called gently as she turned.
She stopped.
Why did you really help me? You don't know me. I could have been lying. I could have been anyone. Tessa smiled, not big, just a small, tired smile, the kind only someone who had truly suffered could give. You were hungry, she said simply. That's all I needed to know. She turned and walked away, her head held high, her steps slow but steady. Grayson sat there long after she left, watching her disappear down the street. He could still feel the warmth of the bread in his hands. But something deeper had warmed inside him. This woman, this stranger, had more dignity in her struggle than most people had in their wealth. And as she disappeared around the corner, Grayson knew something with absolute clarity. She was the one he had been searching for. The one who gave, not for show, not for praise, not for reward, but because it was the right thing to do. He placed the cardboard sign back into his backpack and stood. The test was over. Now it was time for the truth to begin. Grayson stood still for several minutes, staring at the spot where Tessa had disappeared around the corner. A million thoughts swirled in his mind, about kindness, about life, about how a woman with almost nothing had managed to give him more than anyone had in years. He put the bread in his backpack, zipped it up, and took one last look around the street. The sun had set completely now. Streetlights buzzed on, and the air had turned chilly again. But something was different. This time, the cold didn't feel so sharp, because someone had reminded him that human hearts could still be warm. He took a cab, quietly paid in cash, and returned to a quiet hotel under a false name. He couldn't go home yet. Not until everything was ready. That night, Grayson couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, looking out at the glowing skyline, his fingers wrapped around a cup of black coffee. Tessa Hayes. That name stuck with him. Her face. Her quiet strength. The way she fed him without hesitation. She didn't ask who he was. She didn't demand proof or make him feel less. She simply saw someone in need and acted. Grayson had been surrounded by wealth all his life, but it had taken a stranger in oversized shoes to show him what true riches looked like. The next morning, he made a decision. He pulled out his phone, switched on his private number, and made a call. "Elliot," he said, speaking to his longtime personal assistant. "Sir, I've been trying to reach you. The board has been—" "I know," Grayson cut in, "but I need you to do something else first." "Yes, of course. I need a full background check on a woman named Tessa Hayes. Late 20s. Lives in Chicago. She has a baby boy. Used to be a schoolteacher. I need her employment history, current address, everything." There was a pause on the line. "Is she in trouble?" Elliot asked. "No," Grayson said, staring out the window. "She's about to receive a blessing. I just need to make sure it reaches her." By afternoon, Elliot had gathered every detail. Tessa Hayes, age 29. Widowed at 26 when her husband, Marcus Hayes, died in a truck accident. She had a 2-year-old son named Jordan. After her husband's death, she tried to keep her teaching job, but rising childcare costs and unpaid medical bills forced her to quit. She moved from one shelter to another before finally renting a basement room in a rundown building on the south side. She had no criminal record, no addictions, no support system. But she volunteered twice a week at the local library, reading to children. Grayson sat back in his chair as Elliot finished reading the report. "She has nothing, and yet she still gives," Grayson whispered. He took a deep breath and stood up. "Let's prepare a life-changing gift." That evening, as the city lights glowed beneath the clouds, Tessa returned to the small basement apartment she called home. The ceiling was low. The air smelled like damp wood and old pipes. But it was quiet, and her son could sleep safely. She laid Jordan on a second-hand mattress and sat beside him, brushing a curl from his forehead. Her own stomach growled. She hadn't eaten all day except for the half-loaf she saved. But she didn't regret giving the other half away. She remembered the man's eyes, how surprised and grateful he looked. She didn't know his story, but she knew what hunger felt like. And that was enough. She lay back and stared at the ceiling. Another day survived. She didn't expect a miracle. She had learned not to, but she still believed that kindness mattered, even if no one noticed. What Tessa didn't know was that someone had noticed. And the next knock on her door would not be from hunger or struggle, but from hope itself. The next morning, just as the early sun touched the edge of her small basement window, Tessa was feeding baby Jordan from a cracked plastic bowl. He sat in her lap, making soft giggles with every spoonful. She was humming a quiet song, one her mother used to sing, when a loud knock echoed through the room. Knock. Knock. She froze. Nobody ever knocked on her door. Her landlord lived upstairs but only came down to collect rent, and it wasn't rent day. She wiped her hands quickly, gently lifted Jordan into his little crib, and moved toward the door. Her heart beat faster with each step. Knock. Knock. She opened it carefully, just an inch. Then she gasped. Standing there was the same man from yesterday, the man she had given bread to. Only he looked completely different. His clothes were spotless. He wore a dark gray tailored suit with polished shoes. His hair was neatly trimmed, and his beard was gone. He looked clean, strong, confident, and completely unfamiliar. But those eyes, she knew those eyes. "Caleb?" she asked, confused. He gave her a soft smile. "My real name is Grayson," he said gently. "Grayson Wells." She blinked, not understanding. "The billionaire?" she whispered. "Yes," he nodded. "And I've been looking for someone like you." Tessa took a step back, still trying to make sense of what she was seeing. "I don't understand," she said. He held up a white envelope and handed it to her. "I didn't lose everything," he explained. "I gave it up on purpose for 1 week, disguised myself as a beggar, just to see if kindness still exists when no one's watching. You didn't know me. You had nothing to gain, and yet, you shared your food with me." She looked down at the envelope in her hand. Her fingers trembled. Grayson stepped back and nodded toward it. "Please open it." With shaky hands, Tessa opened the flap. Inside, she found a short letter written in fine black ink. "Dear Tessa, yesterday, you fed a man the world had forgotten. You gave without asking. You gave when you barely had enough for yourself. Today, I return that gift. Enclosed is a certified check for $2 million. Along with this letter, I have arranged for a fully paid home in your name, a full-ride scholarship for Jordan to any school of your choice, a position as director of the Hope for One Foundation, where you will help lead outreach efforts for struggling families. Thank you for showing the world that compassion still lives. Yours in gratitude, Grayson Wells." Tessa's breath caught in her throat. Her knees gave way, and she sat slowly on the small step outside her door. The letter trembled in her lap. "Is this real?" she whispered, tears already filling her eyes. "It's as real as your kindness," Grayson said softly. "And it's yours." She covered her mouth with her hand as sobs broke through. Silent tears streamed down her cheeks, not from pain this time, but from shock, disbelief, and overwhelming gratitude. Jordan babbled from the crib behind her, smiling at the sound of her voice. Grayson stepped closer. "I didn't just see someone kind, Tessa. I saw someone strong. You didn't wait for the world to be fair. You chose to be kind anyway. That's what this world needs more of." She looked up at him, eyes still wet. "I thought I was invisible," she said. "All this time, I thought no one saw me." "I did," he said. "When no one else did, I saw you." That day, Tessa moved out of the basement. By sunset, she was standing in the living room of a newly furnished 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood, fully paid for in her name. The fridge was stocked. The heat worked. There was even a crib with soft blankets waiting for Jordan. Grayson left quietly that evening, giving her space to breathe, to absorb the moment. But before he left, he said one more thing. "Tomorrow, your story begins again. And I hope the world hears it." Tessa hugged him tightly, tears still fresh on her face. "I'll never forget this," she said. "You don't have to," he replied. "Just keep doing what you do best, giving." And just like that, the woman who once gave half a loaf of bread became the owner of a future bigger than she had ever imagined. The next morning, sunlight poured through the wide windows of Tessa's new home. For the first time in years, she didn't wake up to a leaking ceiling or cold floors. She didn't wake up to the sound of footsteps above or pipes groaning under the ground. She woke up in peace. Baby Jordan lay smiling in a soft new crib just a few steps away. His little fingers wrapped tightly around a stuffed giraffe, the first toy he'd ever had that didn't come from a donation bin. Tessa stood quietly in the kitchen, staring out the window with a warm cup of tea in her hands. She was still trying to believe it wasn't all a dream. How could one simple act, sharing bread with a stranger, turn into a miracle? But it had. And today she was ready to start giving back again. That afternoon, Grayson returned, this time in a simple jacket and jeans. No cameras. No news crews. Just him. "Are you ready?" he asked. Tessa smiled. More than ever. They drove to the south side of the city, The same neighborhood where she used to walk with Jordan wrapped on her back. The buildings were old. The streets cracked. But the people there were real. Struggling. Surviving. And now they would have help. Because in the heart of that same neighborhood stood a brand new community center, painted bright white with a large wooden sign above the entrance. The Tessa Hope Foundation. Inside were shelves of food, diapers,
Books.
blankets, a quiet reading room for children, and job listings pinned to a wall. There was even a classroom space for free lessons and training. Tessa's photo hung in the hallway, but the quote beneath it was what made people stop and read. You don't have to have much to change someone's life. Just enough love to care. Tessa walked through the doors with Grayson beside her. Staff clapped as she entered, not for fame, but for what she represented, kindness with no price tag. She took her seat as director of the foundation. Her office was simple: a clean desk, a playpen for Jordan, a calendar filled with plans to help. When asked later that week during a quiet interview why she thought Grayson had chosen her, she answered without hesitation. I didn't do anything special. I just gave what I had. But sometimes that's all it takes, a small act at the right time to show someone they're still seen. Grayson, watching from the back of the room, smiled quietly. He didn't need credit. He didn't need applause. He had already received his reward, the kind of peace that only comes from giving to someone who truly deserved it. Months passed. The foundation grew. More people came. More families were helped. Tessa trained new volunteers, told her story in schools, and helped rebuild broken lives one person at a time. But she never forgot where it began. In her new office, right next to her desk, hung the original cardboard sign, carefully framed. Just hungry. Not hopeless. Thank you. She looked at it every day. Reminder of a man in rags. A reminder of who she used to be. And a reminder that sometimes hope doesn't come from the rich or the powerful. It comes from those who are hurting but still choose to help anyway. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, kindly subscribe to my channel, like, and share this video to your friends and loved ones. You can also comment what you feel about the story under the comment section. Your support and engagement encourage me to post more videos. Thanks for watching.